Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mallow. Welcome to Paranormal Yacker. My guest on today's show is Cassandra Snow, a professional magical arts practitioner. I'll be yakking with Cassandra about her book, Queering Your Craft Witchcraft from the Margins. Cassandra Snow, welcome to Paranormal Yacker.
Yay, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Do you recall, Cassandra, when you first became interested in witchcraft, and what was there about witchcraft that drew you to it?
I grew up in the Bible Belt in the US and I grew up very Christian and my parents are actually fine. It was just sort of expected culturally. And so that's sort of how I was raised. And honestly, I had some really bad stuff happen to me my freshman year of college, and I was looking for answers that I wasn't finding in the path that I'd been following or sort of trained to follow my whole life. And I started just kind of looking for answers. And I feel like when a spiritual path, regardless of what it is right for you, it finds you. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was making all these new friends, and they were all very interested in the occult, in the paranormal, in the metaphysical, but they really kind of came out of nowhere in my life. And so I started listening to what they were saying and paying attention. And I think I started with tarot, and I was like, well, I'm a little afraid to sort of leave the church. So I'm just going to play with this and see how I feel. And then tarot is definitely an amazing tool that also is going to take you where it wants you to go. And so it was from there that I started experimenting with spells, and that worked really well. So I started attending some classes nearby, and that was all really successful. From there, it wasn't long until I was sort of fully immersed in witchcraft. And that was mostly as a solitary practitioner, but it definitely was a full immersion.
Why do you feel it was important that a book be written about witchcraft for novices as well as longtime practitioners of the craft who find they have something in common they have to deal with? That being, they have been marginalized for the most part by mainstream society.
Yeah, I think most writers, especially in the metaphysical, especially in the occult, especially in witchcraft, are going to tell you that they write books that they couldn't find. And so, and that's very true of even like novelists and fictional storytellers too. Definitely in our field, there's a lot of really wonderful books out there that are sort of more 101. And my book definitely is that, but I did want to sort of elevate it for people who had been practicing for a while. There are, of course, some really good kind of 201 as well, but I feel like those expect you to like already have so much language, not just about witchcraft itself, but about queerness itself. And I know that a lot of people who are maybe exploring their sexuality, exploring their gender, maybe are not ready to jump fully immersed into a book that expects you to know so much about yourself already. I really wanted something that was going to reach out to people where they are. And I really wanted something that didn't talk down to you, but did sort of provide foundations. And there's sort of a focus on the book and kind of DIY principles and where you go once you have information. And I feel like that was really important because while there are certainly wrong ways to do things, there's not really one right way. And so you have to find the way that works for you.
One would think that witchcraft, something that has long been on the fringe of society, would have practitioners in it who are understanding, open minded, and believe that the craft should be inclusive. However, Cassandra, as you know, you write about it, that is not the case.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think it's because humans are limited. I think there are outliers everywhere. So, yes, there are people who are profoundly racist, profoundly queerphobic, like in the metaphysical community. What I think is more common is that people are coming from their own perspective with their own privileges, and they just haven't thought about it. And then people do feel resistant to change sometimes, even if they know it's maybe for the best. I do get it, and I do have sympathy for people who are being told now, oh, this is actually the wrong way to do things. And so I try to explain it more like this actually hurts people and this marginalizes people, because I do feel like practitioners who haven't been exposed to that maybe don't see the harm it's doing. And when you're just being told you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you are going to go on the offensive. Sometimes that's still what someone needs when they have been given all the resources and they're still not open to that change. But I think, I wanted something that would kind of also walk people in and explain why certain things were harmful.
Now, you include in Queer in Your Craft a queer witch manifesto.
Mhm.
Could you summarize that manifesto for my viewers?
I really tried to fit a lot of words into, or a lot of ideas into a few words, because if a manifesto is too long, it sort of loses its appeal. But the crux of it is that witchcraft has always been an outlier, and therefore it is for people who are oppressed. And that is especially true of LGBTQ plus people. When you have all of these spiritual skills, you should be using them to make a better world. That's a big piece of it. But I also think the way that we talk about pleasure is harmful. So even in the manifesto, I say that, everyone deserves the pleasure that witchcraft can bring as well. Of course, I focus on, ideally we'd move focus away from bodies, but it is so embedded in everything that I also make a point to note that like all bodies are deserving of witchcraft and deserving of texts and resources and tools that speak to them and their body and where they are with it.
Now, there are different types of magic. They are performed in different ways, serve different purposes, and you do a great job in your book of clearly explaining each and every one of them. I could probably devote an entire show to each one of the things you
Oh,
covered.
thank you.
Now, what I would like to know now is which magical rituals you find yourself using most often in your own life.
Even that is very mixed. I absolutely, I'm going to say before the pandemic, because in the pandemic, pretty much all I have been doing is the stuff that I do on my own at home. I have like morning, afternoon, and evening routines, or I try to, unless I'm just really tired. And my morning routine is very almost more in league with the occult. I try to do a lesser banishing. I try, and then I do some tinctures and things that are supposed to heal me, make me a better person, make me
Mhm.
more in tune. Then around the afternoon, I kind of pull on some DIY folksy witchcraft to be like, okay, now let's see all this work that I'm doing, fill my pockets or, whatever I'm in need of that day. That's sort of more manifestation work, but that's very rooted in sort of the concept of like use what you have first and then just get something. It's me putting cinnamon in my coffee or something like that.
Mhm.
And then in the evening, I do tend to do more polytheistic, pagan sort of devotionals to the goddesses, the spirits that I work with, other entities that I work with. And when people listen to me, they sometimes are like, wow, that's so much every day. I want to emphasize that like I don't do it all ever. Like
Mhm.
some mornings I get a late start, some evenings I'm too tired, sometimes I forget to do stuff in the afternoon. And it is about just doing what you're able to do. And so the reason that it was important for me is just because I practice all of those different ways. And before the pandemic, I also did a lot of sort of ceremonial, ritualistic things with other people. I do still identify as a solitary practitioner. I'm not in a specific coven, but I will like pull friends together on big moon events, or someone else will pull friends together on a big day that's important to them. And while that's not the focus of the book, I think you do see the eclecticness. I'm not in a specific coven, which means we get all different kinds of practitioners working together, which I absolutely love. I think it makes such cool magic. It just is different than what you maybe expect. And so, yeah, and then there's so much beyond what I do. And I obviously didn't want to talk about something I don't know about, haven't
Mhm.
done a lot, but I try to offer some other options as well.
In many books on witchcraft, it is advised that spells and rituals conclude with the phrase, and it harm none. You disagree with that. Why?
I disagree vehemently with that for a number of reasons. And again, it is something that I think was well intentioned. It is something that when I read foundational witchcraft texts and I see that in there, it is clear that they are not wanting to like mess with someone else's free will or something like that. And I agree with that. The way I see it get used now is in a very sort of spiritual bypassing love and light way. It's the kind of people who are like, no bad vibes, and then just like shut people out if they disagree with them, that kind of thing. And so I think it is something that has really been, I hate to use the word appropriation if it's not BIPOC being hurt, but I really do think it's been sort of appropriated and misused and watered down quite a bit. And so that's one of the reasons. I also do think that while well intentioned, it doesn't, I think I just overthink things. And so when I start thinking about end it, harm none, I'm like, well, what if I'm doing a spell, and I use this as an example in the book, to bring the right person to me? End it, harm none means that you're only going to find someone that no one else has an attachment to them, no one else has an attachment to you, no one is going to get hurt by the two of you being together. And people have feelings, and that's really unrealistic. And so, and on the intellectual end, I just don't understand it. Where I start to go deeper, and you get a lot of that leftist theory and praxis in my work, is the biggest example of that is money magic, because the way money is provided and acquired, sort of dangled over our heads like a carrot, it's an exploitative system by nature. And if you are gonna be a part of it, and you have to be, and that's not on you got to survive, and I would argue even thrive in the system you're in. People are harmed to get that money to you. They just are. It's how it works. It's how it all works. And so if you're someone who only cares about your spells being successful, you're going to really limit yourself by tying yourself to that. And if you are someone like me, probably like yourself, like a lot of other people who are just very interested in doing good in the world, it really mirrors to me a lot of tone policing we see, especially when Black women speak out against injustice that they're seeing. To me, it really mirrors like the way people will say, oh, well, I won't listen to you because you're being too angry about this. And I have seen it used that way in witchcraft circles, at witchcraft events. If someone says, oh, this doesn't take my beliefs into account, it suddenly becomes, we want to be love and peace and it harm none. And like I said, I think it's just been very convoluted what that was supposed to mean versus what it means now. That was my longest answer. So it's because I have a lot of feelings about it.
For those who are interested in pursuing witchcraft but are not sure about the best way to begin, what advice would you give them?
I think that the first step, and I'm not even sure I actually sort of talk about this in the book, but I think the very first step is honestly meditation and prayer to whatever you think is out there. Or if you have no idea, that's fine too. Just sort of an open-ended prayer, like whoever wants to work with me, know that I'm open to that, and devoting some actual time every day to clearing your head, tuning into your intuitive self, and seeing where you're being led. From there, I do recommend experimenting with a bunch of different things. Everyone's brain, heart, soul works differently. And so you might do that meditation, you might do that prayer, that thought, and you still might not get a lot of answers just because of how you process input. And in that case, I think if you're getting messages from that, obviously just follow those. If you're not, then I would try experimenting with just some easier beginner spells to see what works for you. I do think it's fascinating that even though in this community we all learn as much as we can about so many different types of magic, it is true that my manifestation spells are a lot stronger than my healing spells. So I maybe will call on a friend to do that for me. But to figure out where your natural strengths are, you want to just experiment and then read books. I love, love, love social media. I'm actually a huge defendant of it, but I also have really good social media habits that I know are difficult for some people. But there's a lot of really bad information out there on specific apps I could name, but I won't. But I think books have at least been vetted by someone, and not every book is going to be for you. And if you can't afford to just buy a bunch of books that might not work out for you, you might be surprised, unless you live in a really, really like small restrictive town, you might be surprised at what your public library actually has that you can check out, because I've been super pleasantly surprised a bunch of times that way. If you have a good rapport with your librarian, even if you're in that really, that really restrictive town, you could always just say, oh, I'm researching this for a project, and they'll kind of pull it into the library for you. So I would definitely say start with that. And then I am a big proponent of social media. And what I would say for following people on social media is, are they witches or occultists that talk about the books they read, that talk about other witches and occultists that they're in community with? Does it seem like they have a foundational knowledge? And that is, with witchcraft, you are going to have to think critically. Like, things aren't just going to be handed to you all the time. But even thinking critically about what social media personalities you're letting sort of guide you, and take some classes. There are affordable ones you can find. It might mean you have to wait a year to see them pop up. Keep taking classes. I have a friend who's announcing a class about the cosmos and plant life and how they can and cannot be partnered together. And I'm so excited to take it because those are two of my weaker areas. Just keep learning learning and growing from there. Also, practice. I get yelled at by my guides in so many meditations, and even when I get readings from other people that are like, you're doing too much input and not enough output. You have to learn a lot, and then you have to actually do the things you're learning about.
Are there rituals that could be dangerous and cause harm if performed by an inexperienced practitioner of witchcraft and therefore should be avoided by them until they gain more experience in the craft?
I definitely think so. I definitely think you should, until you really know what you're doing, you should stick with herbs that you know are food safe, that you know, just in case. You never know if it's going to get on your hand and then to your mouth or whatever. And if you don't know if something is food grade or not, do not use it. So until, like I said, you really know what you're doing, you really have a handle on that. While I think candle magic is amazing for beginners, do not start overdressing your candles until you really have a handle on it and how much attention they need. I do work with a lot of chthonic entities, a lot of chthonic deities, and a lot of their companions or whatever you want to call it. But I do think that that is something you absolutely should read a lot about and maybe practice with other people first before you really start trying to work with it. I do think some harm has been overstated. Sure, anything can happen, but if you're restricting, like, okay, I'm going to work on this in this amount of time, and you've read and you know what you're doing and you have boundaries up and you know what you're doing, harm can absolutely still come. On a certain social media app, there's all of these people saying like, oh, Moldavite burned down my house or something like, and like that's in so many ways, harm is being really overstated online right now, but you should still be careful. And if you're not sure, then you should do it with a friend before you take it on your own.
What is the purpose, the end game of queering your craft? What would you, Cassandra, like your readers to get out of the book and take away with them after they read it?
I would want people honestly to just, so if you are an experienced practitioner, I would want you to sort of just examine your practice and make sure that you're honoring all people as much as you can be, especially those who are marginalized, and maybe even sort of giving those people priority in what you're doing. But I also would say queering your craft is a lot of principles about making sure you're honoring your whole self. I do, especially today, the past couple of years, see a lot of people really being so hard on themselves for reasons that are not their own fault. But this book really, I hope, will show you how to love your whole self, and then will show you how much better your witchcraft can be when you are coming from that place. And if you're a newbie, I want you to have some really good foundations, a desire to seek out more information, only now you kind of know how to frame it through a queer friendly lens, and set up a regular practice that is going to support the work you're doing and the things you'll be learning as you go.
Should viewers of Paranormal Yacker want to order Queering Your Craft or Queering the Tarot, another excellent book you wrote, how can they do it? Also, should anyone want to learn about the various services you offer, as well as your feminist theater group, Gadfly Theater Productions, what is your contact information?
So you can order the books. It is out through Wiser, which is, a small, I sort of say like it's a small but like known publisher. So you can order it pretty much anywhere that you would order a witchcraft book. Your local spot is fine. The library can get it if they don't have it already. But any of the major retailers, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, like they'll all have it as well. I love IndieBound. I love Bookshop because they support your local spots as well. So that's the book, and that's, or you can still go into a lot of, I see it at Barnes and Noble quite a bit, as well as some of my local ones, but I also live here, so I'm not sure how much other places are still but they can order it for you. For me, my website is cassandra-snow.com. I do a monthly class called Tarot for Today, where we honor sort of the spirit and the roots of the tarot, but we bring it into today to learn to read it very practically. And that's on the website. I often have other classes going on, and those will be on the website. The best way right now, I'm closed to the public for readings, for tarot readings. The best way to know when I'm open again is to follow me on Instagram or Twitter. It's Tarot Cassandra in either case. I believe it's Tarot_Cassandra on Twitter. Yeah, so that is where to find me and the books. And then if you want want to support, right now I don't have another project coming out eminently, but I'm always writing and trying to think about what I can pitch where for publication. So if you want to support that and then just get a whole bunch of like exclusive articles that include spells, tarot theory, essays, stuff like that, that is all through sort of this queer feminist lens. That is going to be at patreon.com/Cassandra Snow. And then, yeah, I run a cool grassroots theater company here called Gadfly Theater Productions.
Cassandra Snow, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yacker. I wish you success with your books and your mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yacker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched. To be sure you don't miss any interviews on my free YouTube channel, all you have to do is press the subscribe button on your screen.